All right, welcome Owen. Our first edition of Transworld Cargo Straight Talk. We're going to chat a little bit today about conformities and rules and regulations, just to give our viewers a bit of insight and sort of some of the experiences that we've had. Just that everybody knows, Owen is our Director of Customs. He's got a whole customs team of approximately 8 people working for him here. We've got people on the borders as well, working under his hand, and obviously in Walvis Bay, as well as in South Africa and in Botswana. So Owen, we've had some sort of nice interaction this week in regards to compliances and what people do. So just to let the people know is I'm talking specifically about personal effects. Owen will elaborate on some of the other things and how vital it is that your goods that you send are 100% correctly declared. If it's not declared properly, you are facing massive, massive fines. And also by bringing something in, you know, we've got this tendency, I'll just put it into my suitcase and nobody will see. At this present stage, all personal effects, Owen, is basically being searched manually. So it means that your whole container actually gets unpacked physically and everything is checked. So maybe you can give us a bit of insight into that.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Yes, indeed. Personal effects being a rebate item. You are allowed to bring your personal effects when you move to Namibia, when you are returning resident, etc. So basically, you do not pay duties and taxes, except now that also bears a risk that people can bring in new goods which is not related to their personal effects. Hence, the need for this to be checked or inspected by customs. Basically what you need to do when you pack your container, you need to list all the goods that is there. You just give the conditions of the goods, whether they're new or used, and the value associated with this article. If it's an item that you had for quite some time, obviously it would be more an estimate, but it should be fair towards the product. The value should be fair towards the product. You cannot bring in a car, for instance, with a value of $1 Namibian.
Yeah.
So compliance is crucial in terms of personal effects. We stay on this topic because it's so important. We have many people that's living abroad that's coming back with their goods. And it is vitally important for them to list these goods properly, each, and label them properly.
And in there, obviously, in the English language.
In the English language, it needs to be understood with clear descriptions. You cannot just say item. You need to exactly tell us what is in this container.
We have had instances where things had to be first off translated because they weren't in the right language, and that then comes with additional costs again.
Indeed. And also your quantities is equally important.
Okay.
If you have more than one item, state it. Otherwise, it would seem like an undeclared good. If you tell me you have one T-shirt and you bring in 100 T-shirts...
So I didn't know it doesn't really work. I didn't know. You know the answer.
Unfortunately for us, our law does not make
provision
for saying I did not know. So if you don't know, you need to ask. But it's quite a risk if in personal effects, not for us just clearing it, but also for the people involved.
But Owen, there's that other thing as well where people collect donations from overseas.
Yes.
And obviously there are special ways of going around it and getting the right authorization to do that.
Correct.
And there are certain items which then are obviously not allowed, you know, like second-hand shoes and stuff like that. Why is that?
Second-hand shoes, for instance, or footwear for that matter, is not allowed. That is a World Health Organization ruling also. There's health risk involved.
It's a health risk, all right?
Yes. Whereas you would now say, but clothing as well. But clothing, not so much. You know, if you look at a used T-shirt, it's more hygienic than a pair of socks or shoes for that matter. So it's a health organization.
And certificates of origin, where does that fit in?
The certificate of origin is more to do with when you trade with goods between and where preference come into play. I'll give you an example. We've got the SADC EPA, which is the Economic Partnership Agreement. So with this agreement, some duties are reduced or some are completely eliminated by the agreement. So for us to present these goods to customs as a declaration, and sometimes in some products we might ask for the certificate of origin
Yeah.
to apply. For instance, when we deal with SADC goods,
Yes.
the certificate of origin is exactly the document that gives these goods the clearance
Okay.
for to be treated under that preferential treatment
Okay.
or agreement.
Okay.
So that's where this thing is very important, that we always ask for the certificate of origin.
So then, obviously, then by using that, then certain rebates apply that have obviously been negotiated and so forth.
Correct.
And okay, let's look in quickly into the general market and so forth. I know we've had quite a couple of instances as well. For example, I know for a fact that alcohol, due to excise, is strongly governed. Tobacco is strongly governed. So much so that I do believe on excise works on cigarettes, for example, per cigarette.
Correct, yes.
Not per packet.
Correct, yes. Basically, the formula is quite high. It works on packets of 10. That used to be the normal packets of 10.
Yeah.
So, yes, the excise duties is calculated on the number of 10 units. And then you have alcohol, for instance, which working on the liters of absolute alcohol. And these rates are quite high. And that's why the administrations, they took extra care to ensure there's no revenue leakage.
Okay.
They make sure that you have declared the correct number of cigarettes.
Yeah.
These trucks are almost every time searched or scanned to make sure that we have complied with regulation, whether it's just a transit, a permanent import. The administration deemed the rest the same because these dues are quite high. I do not want to go in exact figures because they've got different rates depending on the type of alcohol, etc. that you have. But yes, this is quite a risky commodity. Yeah. And with cigarettes, they also need to comply with our tobacco control. And if not,
correct,
those cigarettes can get you in a lot of problems.
And then immediately forfeited to the state, I presume.
Forfeited,
you lose everything.
Indeed, plus
trucks, everything,
fines.
Gone.
Indeed. Correct. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
absolutely correct. Especially when we're talking about provisions, it is saying that if there's irregular dealing, your goods, your asset can be forfeited as well. Your truck is gone plus the goods.
Tell us quickly. We were talking about the certification which you can get, like certificate of origin and so forth. How does the Euro 1 play in that game with Namibia? So obviously you can generate the Euro 1 from here, or Euro 1 generated from the other side. What does it exactly mean? And that it basically exempts you of the duties and stuff.
Indeed. The Euro 1 is a certificate of origin, if you can state it like that. But for preference with the EU countries, including also, we've got a different additional agreement with Britain. They are called the SACUM, GB SACUM EPA. Okay. And that's where the Euro 1 is being applied, to say that these products is conforming with the rules of origin. Yep. An example would be fish would be wholly obtained. The fish would have been caught in the water. But if we are to produce something, there is certain, let's say for instance, tires.
Yep.
The cost of producing the tires must be at a certain percentage of the value of the tire. If you bring in all of the raw material and you just produce a tire here, that does not necessarily mean that this tire is conforming with the rules of origin.
Okay.
So, but if let's say 90% of the raw material was sourced locally and produced here, yes, then you will issue a Euro 1 because you're saying this is conforming with the rules of origin.
Okay.
So that's certification.
So that's to avoid obviously people getting all the parts and everything from somewhere else and just assembling it. It said it was made here.
Correct.
So there's difference about assembling it and physically making it here.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So for all of these origins, there's rules.
Yeah.
The different type of products. When you plant these products, the seed might not be from Namibia, but how is how it's being planted and the process is going in to make the product.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's say let's take for example one of our clients who produces beer. Okay. So the raw material comes from overseas. Okay. The process here works in terms of the manufacturing of the beer.
Correct.
Or the brewing of the beer. So now, where do you draw that line? Where is it regarded as it's made here?
So,
Because the biggest portion of that is water, which is ours, I would presume.
Correct.
And then the malt.
Correct. Now we will look at the percentage that the malt, in terms of value, that malt plays within the beer and the processes that's going, value-added processes that's going into
it.
Beer.
Okay.
So the malt by itself, yes, it's to make beer, but we're exporting beer. So how many processes between that raw material and actually the beer went into play?
Okay.
We are talking about all costs. We're talking about machines, labor, electricity, water, all of that going into that. If significantly adding value to that,
Yes.
and it complies with the rules of origin of that specific product, say for instance they're saying that the value of the local activities must exceed 60%.
Okay.
And the malt is 30%. Then that have complied with the rules of origin.
Okay.
And then you can issue a Euro 1 if you want to send to the EU, for instance. If it's SADC, you would issue the SADC certificate of origin.
So even with something like steel or something like that, you could bring in the steel and then manufacture something from there, as long as there's been value added to a certain proportion of the specific item that you are manufacturing. It could be then declared as being manufactured in Namibia.
Indeed, you're correct.
Okay.
So if it's just the steel, but what about the wire that you incorporate into this product, or whatever other processes went in?
Yeah.
And like I said, each product have like the range of rules that they need to comply: 60%, 40%, 20%, etc.
So you know, the thing is, to everybody listening in, what is important here is to do your homework first. Don't just go and buy stuff and just bring it in and hope for the best. I know, for example, as well, a lot of people bring in, i.e., let's say 2 walkie-talkies, haven't been checked with CRAN, because there are certain requirements that you have to have. And if that has not been cleared with the authorities, it's forfeited to the state. You can throw it away. You will not get it. You know, or you will have to go into the process of having it checked, which might take some months or whatever, and then you find out at the end of the day that they don't accept it anyway from a manufacturing purposes. Let's just go into this CRAN thing quickly, into that. It obviously, it's got anything to do with anything that is Bluetooth, Wi-Fi orientated. What else? Communication orientated.
So basically, CRAN caters for communication which you could connect to any network in Namibia.
Okay.
So there is some products that is exempted, for instance, like your laptop, for instance, it could only, it would connect to a Wi-Fi, but not necessarily to the internet directly. Okay. Whereas the router would directly connect to the internet, thus the router needs to have CRAN type approval. Okay. The cell phone, it connects directly to the network that you need CRAN type approval.
Okay.
So you're absolutely correct, sir. My advice to everyone is, before any product, check all legislations. Not just CRAN, for instance, agriculture, health, there's so many of them. But specifically, if any communication devices that you, radio, antennas, etc., it's good to first check with us or to get the specifications.
But I think in general, the world has become such a small place. Check anything and everything. Look, if it comes from South Africa, we all know 16.5% VAT, that's it.
Good.
You understand? Unless it's obviously in transit or something like that, or it's bonded or whatever the case is. But I think anything in general, there's been so many times where mistakes have been made, where one considers it as, it's just this. You know, people have also asked me, maybe you can explain that, is that when you come in on the aeroplane and you bring a present with, The process of it's a present or whatever the case is, there is, I think, legislation for it in terms of how much it can be valued at, and you may take it through. And then you send that same present in a sea freight container and you want it cleared. People don't understand that that clearance process is totally different to what happens at the airport. So maybe you can just explain on that.
Indeed, there's two different rebates.
Yeah.
The one is saying when it accompanies you, the product
On an
accompanies-
aeroplane.
in
It'll
an
be
aeroplane.
it'll be
It's
in your
with you.
suitcase. Okay.
So that is one rebate.
Yeah.
And then unaccompanied luggage.
Yeah.
That's it's not with you. It's in a container. You
Yeah.
shipped it as cargo, etc.
Yeah.
That is handled differently.
Yeah.
And it has different requirements. If I bring a gift, it's 500 Namibian dollars maximum that it's allowed,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be other items specified like alcohol, tobacco, etc. So I brought this gift myself. It's accompanied
Yeah.
luggage, so it will fall under that specific rebate. Whereas unaccompanied would not fall under that rebate. Thus, it
Yeah.
would be declared
Okay.
as normal importation.
Yeah, yeah. Just to end off, just for our viewers and so forth. What is also very interesting is the mere fact if you leave the country and you take something with you. You know, people don't consider, yes, I've got an airplane ticket and I'm allowed to take my bicycle with. Your bicycle's value is, let's say, 160,000, 180,000, 100,000, 80,000, whatever it is. If you come back with that thing and have not proved that it's left the country, you will have problems
Yeah.
at bringing it in again, because you will have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you've bought it here, etc., etc. So when you leave and you take things like that with you, which you know you're going to bring back, like camera equipment, even big amounts of camera equipment and so forth, just before you leave, go to the airport early, go to customs, say, this is what I'm taking with. Could I just please have a document for that? And that'll save you all the problems when coming in. Owen, on that note, listen, bud, I wish you a nice day. Just for our viewers, please, if you have got questions against, or not against, sorry, in regards to customs, TWC, Transworld Cargo, we can give you all that information, not a problem. Thanks, Owen.
Thank you very much, Sakura.